Jimin finally reveals the heartbreaking truth behind why he and Jungkook no longer live together. His last words left everyone in complete silence. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," Jimin whispered into the microphone, eyes shimmering under the studio lights. "I left because I couldn't breathe anymore." The air inside the broadcast room fractured instantly, as if the words alone had punched a hole through something invisible yet vital. Jungkook, seated only a few feet away in the backstage holding area, froze his fingers, still curled tightly around the bottle of water he hadn't touched since the show began. The cap cracked under the pressure of his grip. Staff members watched the live feed with growing unease, sensing that this was no longer an ordinary talk show segment. This was confession, implosion, eulogy. Outside the glass, fans watching through the tinted windows didn't realize the gravity of the moment unfolding behind the curtain. To them, this was just another interview until Jimin looked straight into the camera and breathed out the sentence that shattered months of rumors and silence. "We stopped living together because I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. And it was because I was trying too hard to stay close to him." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was crushing. Inside the dressing room where Jungkook sat alone just moments earlier, the walls now felt smaller. The screen showing the live broadcast was still on. He hadn't looked away, not once. His face, once unreadable, slowly caved into something raw, something entirely too human. His lips parted as if to say something, but nothing came. His throat clenched around an apology he was no longer sure how to voice. Just 2 years ago, they had shared everything. A home, routines, late-night ramen and movie marathons, unspoken rituals that built the illusion of permanence. They were closer than brothers until closeness began to mean suffocation. The camera zoomed slightly into Jimin's face, the studio audience eerily still, as if everyone collectively held their breath. "I begged him," Jimin continued, voice no louder than a thought, "not to let me disappear while standing right beside him." The host, stunned into rare silence, barely managed a nod. No scripted joke, no deflection, just the harsh weight of truth settling into the room like fog over cold glass. It hadn't always been this way. Jungkook remembered the first time they picked furniture for their apartment. Jimin had insisted on the gray couch, the one that Jungkook hated for being too soft, too easy to sink into. That's the point. Jimin had left. Somewhere to disappear into. Back then, he thought it was just about comfort. Now he understood. Jimin had been hiding in plain sight even then. In the green room, Jungkook stood slowly. The bottle of water dropped to the floor, rolling under the chair unnoticed. His feet felt heavy, as if regret had mass. Memories bled through the edges of his mind. Jimin leaving early from gatherings, growing quieter each day. The light in his eyes dimming not from exhaustion, but from absence. An absence that had lived even when they were in the same room. He walked toward the hallway leading to the stage. No plan, no words prepared. Just a pull in his chest stronger than anything else. Meanwhile, Jimin exhaled deeply and looked down. His hands fidgeted with the silver ring on his index finger, gifted by Jungkook on his birthday 3 years ago. He hadn't worn it in months. Today, he chose to. Not out of nostalgia, out of resolve. "When someone you love begins to feel more like a mirror than a person," he said, "you start breaking every time they crack." Backstage crew exchanged glances as Jungkook stood at the edge of the curtain, shielded by shadows. He wasn't supposed to be there. The producers had made it clear he wasn't invited for this segment, but he watched anyway, rooted in place, as if leaving now would be a greater betrayal than any he had committed before. The audience clapped politely, unsure whether they were applauding courage or simply following the cue. Jimin bowed slightly, then sat back in his chair, shoulders stiff, but in his eyes, relief. The kind of relief that came not from hurting someone, but from finally choosing to stop hurting yourself. And Jungkook, he finally moved. But not toward the stage, not into the spotlight. He turned back down the hallway, walked toward the emergency exit at the far end of the corridor. No cameras followed him. No one dared speak. Outside, the sky had turned gray. The rain had started. He stood under the awning, blinking hard. Maybe it was true. Maybe love had never been enough. But what broke him wasn't Jimin's words. It was the fact that Jimin had said them without looking for his eyes. Because once upon a time, Jimin used to search his face for permission, for comfort, for any hint of apology unspoken, raw, and real. Today, he didn't. And that was how Jungkook knew. This time, It was truly over. The studio lights had faded, but the echoes of Jimin's words still haunted the air. Outside, the city carried on, horns blaring, neon lights flickering, and the rain steadily washing away whatever sense of control Jungkook had managed to hold on to. His hood pulled low, soaked and dripping, he stood alone on the sidewalk near the broadcasting station's emergency exit, staring at the slick concrete beneath his boots as if the answers to everything they had lost were etched there. He hadn't spoken, not to the staff, not to the manager, not even to himself. There were no words, only the cold, stinging feeling of something irreversible. The kind of pain that doesn't scream but settles into your bones like winter. "Where are you going?" The voice came soft behind him. Jungkook turned, startled. Taehyung stood under a shared umbrella, expression unreadable. He wasn't supposed to be there, either. But if anyone knew how to find him in the quietest parts of a storm, it was Taehyung. "I don't know," Jungkook replied honestly, his voice hoarse. "Somewhere, that doesn't feel like failure." Taehyung didn't flinch. Instead, he handed over the umbrella and stepped back into the rain, letting it soak through his designer coat. His way of saying, "I'll stand here with you, even if you're breaking." And Jungkook broke. Not in front of cameras, not with microphones waiting, but in the street-like glow of a quiet alley, where only someone who knew the sound of his silence could hear him fall apart. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of what he was about to confront. The door clicked open after 3 failed attempts. His key still worked. The apartment was darker than he remembered, like it had been holding its breath for his return. It smelled like wood and faint lemon cleaner. The couch they used to collapse onto after long rehearsals was still there, but Jimin's sketchbooks weren't on the table anymore. His jackets weren't hanging by the door. It was still their place, but without Jimin, it felt like a crime scene frozen in time, untouched by closure. Jungkook stepped inside slowly, as if any sudden movement would collapse the delicate illusion that things could still be repaired. He kicked off his soaked shoes, walked past the kitchen where Jimin used to hum while cooking, and ended up in front of the bookshelf they built together. On the bottom shelf, between old photo albums and random figurines, was a dusty notebook, not Jimin's, his. He opened it. Page 1, lyrics. Page 2, more lyrics. Page 3, a note Jimin had scribbled on a yellow sticky tab. "You always write about loneliness like it's a monster. Maybe because you know it too well." Jungkook shut the book. Then the door behind him opened. "Did you come here to remember? Or to fight?" Jimin's voice was dry, unshaken. Jungkook turned to face him. The man who had once shared every toothbrush, secret, and scar with him. But now he stood like a stranger, one that Jungkook still loved, still hated, and still didn't understand. "I didn't know you'd come back," Jungkook said, unsure whether he was relieved or terrified. "I never left," Jimin replied. "Not completely. You said you couldn't breathe." Jimin's jaw clenched. "And I still can't. But pretending like none of this matters is worse." A beat of silence. "You told the world everything," Jungkook said bitterly, "but never told me. You stopped listening long before I stopped talking." Jimin shot back. Jungkook's chest tightened. "I didn't know how to fix it," he admitted. "I kept thinking it was just stress, or touring, or I thought if we just made it through one more comeback, things would be okay." Jimin's eyes softened, but only slightly. "You thought if you ignored the fire long enough, the flames would forget how to burn." Another silence, heavier this time. No rain to fill the space between them, just everything they never said. "I blamed you," Jungkook whispered. "Every time I felt alone in a room you were still standing in, I blamed you." "And I blamed myself," Jimin said, voice cracking. "Every time I looked at you and saw someone who didn't know how to say goodbye without breaking." Jungkook stepped forward. "Then why did you?" he asked. "Why didn't you give me a chance to fix it?" "Because I was tired of being broken in private while you performed in public like nothing was wrong." Jungkook flinched. That hit deeper than anything else. "But I never stopped loving you," he said. Jimin closed his eyes. "I know. That's what made it hurt the most." They stood in silence again. Not as lovers, not even as friends, just as two people who once believed they could survive anything together. "Do you want me to leave?" Jungkook asked quietly. "No," Jimin answered. "But I don't want you to stay if you're still the same." "I'm not," Jungkook said. "But I don't know who I've become." Then maybe, Jimin said, voice trembling, we figure that out. Separately. And yet, neither of them moved. Outside the apartment, the rain began again, soft and steady. Jungkook glanced toward the window, his voice almost a whisper. You always said rain was your favorite weather. It was the only time I felt like crying didn't need an explanation, Jimin replied. And finally, Jungkook began to cry. Not because of a breakup, not because of betrayal, but because he finally understood that some losses aren't loud. They're slow, quiet, and permanent. Jimin stepped forward and wiped a tear from his cheek. His hand lingered for a second too long. I don't hate you, he said softly. I wish you did, Jungkook choked out. It would be easier than this. Jimin smiled sadly. That's the thing about love. It doesn't leave. It just changes shape. The apartment was silent again, but this time it was not cold, not hostile, just honest. And in the honesty, there was something close to peace. Not reunion. Not yet, but peace. And that was the first time Jungkook realized maybe they didn't need to live under the same roof to still carry a part of each other. He sat on the couch. Jimin sat beside him. For once, no one spoke, and the silence no longer hurt. The next morning was colder than it should have been for spring in Seoul. The clouds outside their old apartment loomed low, as if the sky itself had secrets it refused to release. Jungkook sat alone in the kitchen, stirring a cup of tea he didn't plan to drink. He hadn't slept. Jimin had left without a word just before sunrise. A quiet door. No note. Just silence. Again. But this time, Jungkook didn't chase after him. He just waited. Taehyung arrived later that morning, his face sharp, with unspoken questions. He didn't knock. He didn't have to. You look like hell, Taehyung muttered, walking in. I feel worse, Jungkook replied. Taehyung dropped his coat on the back of the chair and crossed his arms. So, what happened last night? Jungkook hesitated, then looked up. He said he didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because he couldn't breathe anymore. Taehyung exhaled sharply. So he finally told you. Jungkook's brow furrowed. You knew? Everyone knew, Taehyung said, voice flat. Everyone except you. The words hit like bullets. Why didn't anyone say anything? Because it wasn't our place. And because we thought you'd notice before it was too late. Jungkook stood, voice rising. I was trying to protect everything. Our image, our group, the balance. By burying him in silence? Taehyung snapped. You let him vanish piece by piece and called it sacrifice. The air between them cracked open like thunder. Don't you dare act like you understand what it was like living in that pressure cooker, Jungkook hissed. And don't you dare act like you were the only one under pressure, Taehyung fired back. You just wore it better. Jungkook turned away, gripping the counter so hard his knuckles went white. He loved you, Taehyung said after a pause. But you loved the version of him that made you look whole. Jungkook's voice shook. That's not fair. No, Taehyung said quietly. It's the truth. Before either of them could speak again, Jungkook's phone lit up on the table. It was a voicemail. From Jimin. 1 minute. No transcript. Just a timestamp. He pressed play. And everything changed. Jimin's voice crackled softly through the speaker. Calm. Controlled. Tired. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't have the courage to say it to your face. Maybe I'm still a coward, but I'm also done being invisible to someone I used to call home. You said you didn't notice I was fading, but I was screaming in ways only you were supposed to hear. And still, silence. Taehyung looked away, jaw clenched. I used to count how many times you'd ask if I was okay. You stopped at 11. After that, it was always about schedules, stress, the industry. I became background noise to your ambition. And the worst part? I let you. The recording crackled. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming both of us. Because love doesn't just vanish. It gets neglected, forgotten, rewritten into something unrecognizable. There was a long pause. And I guess I just need you to know I didn't leave to punish you. I left so I could hear myself again. My voice, my heart, my worth. The recording ended. The silence that followed was devastating. Jungkook's fingers hovered over the phone. He wanted to hit replay, wanted to call him, wanted to scream. Instead, he whispered, he was right. And Taehyung, for the first time since walking in, softened. "Then fix it," he said. Jungkook nodded slowly, but his heart wasn't ready. That night, the internet exploded. Jimin confession trended worldwide. Clips of the interview were dissected, debated, and distorted. Some fans were sympathetic. Others were brutal. Theories spread like wildfire about their relationship, the apartment, the silence, about what really happened behind closed doors. One headline screamed, "Jimin walks out and never looks back." Another, "Jungkook exposed, the real reason Jimin moved out." None of them were true. But truth rarely survives in the chaos of public hunger. Hybe issued a statement the next day. Neutral, polished, empty. Both artists have decided to pursue individual creative spaces while continuing group commitments professionally. It was damage control dressed as diplomacy. And Jungkook hated it. He hated the lie. So he decided to break the silence. He went live. No makeup, no stylist, no script. Just him in the old apartment, sitting in the living room, the couch between him and the camera. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say," he began, eyes shadowed and honest. "But I know I have to say something." The comments flooded in instantly. He ignored them. "I hurt someone I love. Not because I meant to, but because I didn't notice the damage I was causing by doing nothing." He paused, inhaled sharply. I got comfortable in his silence. I mistook his patience for peace. I let him be the one who bent while I stood tall, and now I'm realizing I broke the thing I needed most by pretending it was unbreakable. Jungkook looked directly at the screen. This isn't a PR moment. It's a personal one. The feed nearly crashed from the number of viewers. I love Jimin. That's never changed. But loving someone and showing it the way they need are two different things. And I failed him in the second. He stood up, ending the stream without fanfare. No applause. No statement from the company. Just truth. Raw. Ugly. Needed. That night, Jimin saw the clip. He didn't cry. He didn't call. He just stared at the screen and whispered, "It's too late for words." But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late for healing. Jimin stood in front of the rehearsal studio mirror. The lights above buzzing faintly like a broken memory. His reflection stared back with a calmness that betrayed the war happening inside him. The mirror had always been his confessional, more honest than any person he'd ever spoken to. Today, it felt like a wall, a reminder, an accusation. Behind him, the door creaked open slowly. "You watched it, didn't you?" Namjoon asked, his voice low but firm. Jimin didn't turn around. "I did." He told the world. "I know." Namjoon took a step forward. "And you said nothing." "I said enough already," Jimin replied. His eyes locked on the version of himself that looked too composed, too controlled, too far from human. "You didn't cry." "I did," he said coldly. "Just not in front of the world." Namjoon sighed, taking a seat on the bench behind him. "Jimin, what are you waiting for?" Jimin finally turned, his face unreadable. "For it to stop mattering." Namjoon blinked. "It won't. Not until you face him. Not until both of you stop speaking through cameras and crowds." Outside, the news cycle had turned rabid. Paparazzi stalked the alley near their old apartment. Tabloids speculated everything from secret affairs to hidden contracts. The fandom had fractured, some defending Jungkook's live confession, others demanding Jimin respond. But Jimin had gone quiet, not out of fear, out of exhaustion. That night, Jungkook sat alone again, this time at a different place, the dance studio where they first choreographed their solo project together. The speakers were off, the mirrors uncovered. Dust coated the edges of the room like regret. He played the track they used to rehearse, their voices harmonizing, echoes of a time when they moved like one, breathed like one, believed like one. Then the door opened again. Jimin stepped in. He didn't speak at first, just walked to the center of the room and stood, arms crossed over his chest, as if afraid that even his breath would shatter what was left. Jungkook didn't rise. He stayed seated on the floor, his back leaning against the mirrored wall. "I didn't expect you," he finally said. "I didn't expect you to go live," Jimin responded, voice dry. "But here we are, silence, heavy, personal, like everything else between them." "You said everything I was afraid to admit," Jimin continued. "But you also said it when it was too late." "I know. I don't want apologies. I'm not giving one, Jungkook said. I'm giving you the one thing I never did before. The truth. Jimin laughed softly. And how many people had to watch it for you to realize that? Jungkook flinched. I didn't go live for them. I went live for you. Because I knew you wouldn't take my calls. Because I knew you'd only believe it if I burned everything else down in front of the world. Then maybe you don't know me at all. I thought I did. I thought so too. There it was. The chasm. The crack in the foundation. The silence that now had names and blame and irreversible damage. You made me feel like my silence was a betrayal, Jimin said, stepping closer. But you never asked what it was costing me. Jungkook's eyes glistened. What did it cost? Jimin exhaled. My dignity. My voice. Myself. The room trembled not from sound, but from the truths being laid bare. I wanted to be your safe place, Jimin whispered. But you made me feel like an accessory to your chaos. Jungkook stood now, walked toward him, not with arrogance, but with desperation. I wanted you to be proud of me, he said, not just of my work, but of who I was trying to become. I thought if I carried all the weight, you'd never have to. Jimin shook his head. But you didn't carry it. You just silenced it. You wore your pain loud. I wore mine quiet. And everyone clapped for the louder one. Jungkook stopped inches from him, close enough to feel the heat of his breath. I still love you. Then why does it feel like a threat every time you say it? Those words broke Jungkook more than any headline. I want to fix it. Jimin's eyes welled. You can't fix something you keep breaking. Jungkook reached out, but Jimin stepped back. Don't touch me if you're not ready to hold everything that comes with me, he said. I am. No, Jimin said softly. You're still chasing redemption. I want someone who chases understanding. Silence again. Outside, the rain began. Again, inside, their eyes locked. And for the first time, it wasn't anger or pain. It was grief. Shared. Equal. Endless. Jungkook turned away, walked to the speaker, and played the track again. They stood in that room, one near the wall, one near the door, but both remembering how they once stood side by side. The music swelled, but no one danced. The next day began with a storm that didn't wait for permission. Lightning cracked through the sky like a warning shot, and Seoul's skyline trembled under the weight of rain thick as shame. Inside an unmarked building, Hybe's private media management office executives were in panic mode. Not over a scandal, but over what might come next. Because the rumors were no longer just fan speculation. A leaked staff email, a private chat log, a photo of Jimin walking out of a meeting room with red eyes and clenched fists. The label had done what it always did: sanitize, control, spin. But no amount of press releases could erase the storm building between two of its brightest stars. Jimin and Jungkook had crossed a line, not publicly, privately, irreversibly. Jungkook was already in the meeting room when the head of PR slammed a folder on the table. This, she barked, is a goddamn wildfire. He didn't flinch. He was too tired for fear. Is any of it fake? He asked flatly. She narrowed her eyes. Does it matter? I'm asking if it's fake. No, it's all real. Every word, every timestamp, every emotion you two refused to handle in private. Jungkook looked down at the folder. Inside were screenshots, a journal entry, a discarded text Jimin never sent. One line stood out more than the rest. I feel like I'm living with someone who loves me in theory, but doesn't know how to see me anymore. Jungkook's heart thudded. I want to speak to him, he said. He doesn't want to see you. I'll wait. He said he's done talking. Then I'll scream. The PR head blinked. What? I'll scream until he answers. I'll make the silence louder than we ever intended. The door behind them burst open. Jimin stood there, soaked from the rain, eyes on fire. You want to scream? He said. Fine. Let's scream. The PR rep backed away like a soldier, realizing she was standing in a battlefield with no armor. Jungkook stood slowly. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, Jimin snapped. You always mean it. You just never expect to be heard. The air in the room stiffened. You leaked your feelings on livestream, Jimin continued. You handed the world a knife and told them to carve their opinions into me. I was trying to protect you from the silence, Jungkook said, his voice low. By making me the center of a circus? Jimin's laugh was hollow. By dragging our pain into headlines? It wasn't dragging. It was confessing. No, Jungkook. Confessing is what you do in private. What you did was plead guilty to a crime you never gave me the right to testify in. The PR rep slipped out, silently shutting the door behind her. Now, it was just them, and the storm, and everything they had buried finally clawing its way out. You said you wanted to scream? Jimin repeated. Then scream. Right here. Right now. No cameras. No filters. Jungkook stepped forward, his fists trembling. Why didn't you tell me you were writing those things? He asked. Because I didn't think you'd care. I always cared. Then, why did I feel like furniture? Jungkook winced. I cooked, I cleaned, I held you through panic attacks. I sat on the floor while you rehearsed speeches for interviews. I let you cry into my chest after Tokyo. I covered for you in front of staff when you were too broken to speak. And not once did you turn around and ask if I was okay. I thought we were surviving, Jungkook whispered. No, you were surviving. I was erasing myself. Jungkook swallowed hard. Then why didn't you leave sooner? Because I kept waiting for you to see me. The lights flickered. Thunder roared. Neither of them moved. You once told me that love means staying, Jungkook said. Even when it's hard. And you forgot the second half of what I said, Jimin replied, voice quieter now. Love means staying, but also choosing. Then I choose you. Jimin's eyes flashed. You always say that when it's too late. Jungkook reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled letter. I found this in your drawer, he said. You never gave it to me. Jimin tensed. That wasn't meant for you to read. Then why keep it in a place you knew I'd eventually look? Jimin didn't respond. The letter shook in Jungkook's hand. You wrote, if he ever asks why I left, tell him I was tired of feeling like a background vocalist in a song I helped write. Tears welled in Jimin's eyes. Did you mean it? Jungkook asked. Jimin stepped forward, slowly, his breath trembling. I meant every damn word. The letter fell between them like ash. Then tell me what to do, Jungkook whispered. Tell me how to fix this. You can't. Then why are you here? Jimin's voice cracked. Because I wanted to see if you'd still listen when I finally screamed. Jungkook did not speak. He just knelt on the floor, at Jimin's feet. I'm listening, he said. And for the first time, Jimin believed him. But belief doesn't erase pain. It just gives it a place to rest. And in that moment, even as the building trembled from thunder, the only sound that mattered was the storm breaking inside them finally, together. Jimin didn't ask him to stand. He didn't touch him. He didn't even look away. Jungkook knelt like a man confessing to a god he didn't believe in anymore. Not for forgiveness, but for recognition. For the first time, he wasn't trying to fix anything. He was just trying to be seen. The silence stretched, filled with the tension of 1,000 unspoken regrets. Outside, the storm had quieted, but inside, the air still trembled. Jimin broke the silence. You want to know something that no one else knows? He said. Jungkook looked up slowly. I almost left the group. Not because of the pressure, not because of management, not because of the fans. I almost left because I couldn't stand being around you. The words hit like a hammer. I couldn't breathe, Jimin continued. Every time we walked on stage, I wondered if my smile looked real enough. Every time we took a photo, I wondered if standing next to you made me look like a liar. Every damn day, I woke up wondering when you'd finally see that I was drowning. Jungkook rose slowly, his face pale. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were always the one they listened to. That's not true. Yes, it is. You were the golden one. You still are. And I became your shadow so well, I forgot how my own light looked. Jungkook's voice trembled. I didn't ask for that. No, Jimin said, stepping forward. But you let it happen, and you benefited from it. Jungkook closed his eyes. So this is about fame? No, it's about being invisible to the one person who promised I never would be. The words lingered like smoke. You think I don't know pain? Jungkook said, his voice sharp now. You think I didn't feel it every time you looked away? Every time you slept with your back to me? Every time I reached for you and you pulled further into yourself? Then why did you stop trying? Because I thought you were gone, Jungkook whispered. I thought I lost you long before you left. They stood only inches apart now, years of tension radiating between them. I hated you, Jimin admitted. Some nights, I wanted to scream in your face and ask you why you stopped seeing me. But I didn't. Because I still loved you more than I hated the silence. Jungkook's voice cracked. I never stopped seeing you. You just stopped acting like it. And then, in a voice so quiet it was almost a breath, Jimin said, I was going to tell the press. Everything. Not about our relationship. About what Hybe covered up. Jungkook's blood ran cold. What do you mean? Jimin looked him dead in the eyes. There's something you don't know, Jungkook. Something they kept from you. Something I only found out because they thought I was too soft to do anything with it. What is it? Jimin stepped back. I'll tell you, but not here. Where? Jimin's voice was ice. Where we both stopped being honest. The apartment. And with that, he walked out, leaving the truth hanging like a knife between them. The apartment had not changed. The same faded rug Jimin used to trip over. The same faint smell of lavender from a diffuser long unplugged. The same silence, thick and sharp like glass, waiting for someone to walk barefoot through it. Jungkook arrived before Jimin. He stood in the middle of the living room, holding nothing but the weight of what he was about to hear. The walls around him seemed closer now, heavier, as if the truth had made them lean in. The door opened exactly 16 minutes later. Jimin walked in without a word. He didn't remove his coat. He didn't glance around. He went straight to the kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and sat. Jungkook remained standing. Sit down, Jimin said. Jungkook obeyed. Jimin placed a USB drive on the table between them. That's everything, he said. What is it? Proof, messages, internal memos, audio recordings, a video I wasn't supposed to see. Jungkook didn't move to touch it. They knew you were breaking, Jimin continued. Hybe, the directors, your personal manager. They had meetings, conversations, and they decided it was better for the company's image if you collapsed quietly instead of causing a public stir. Jungkook's heart pounded. That's not possible. I thought so too. Until someone from the staff, someone who couldn't live with it, sent me that. Jungkook stared at the USB as if it were poison. They manipulated your schedule, cut your rest, pressured you into projects, all while feeding the media a narrative that you were stronger than ever, that you were thriving. He clenched his fists. Why didn't they tell me? Because they didn't need you to know. They needed you to smile. And you've known this for 2 months. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Jungkook's voice cracked. Because I didn't trust how you'd react. I thought you'd defend them. I thought you'd tell me I was wrong, and honestly, Jimin looked down. I was afraid that once you knew, you'd break, and I didn't know how to be the one holding you again. Jungkook stood abruptly. The chair screeched behind him. He paced. Breath quick, mind spinning. All this time, he muttered. I thought I was the problem, that I wasn't good enough, that I was failing. They wanted you to think that, Jimin said. Jungkook turned on him. And you let me? Jimin rose. Don't you dare. You sat on that information while I spiraled. I sat on it because you wouldn't have believed me. And you know it. The room pulsed with rage. You should have told me, Jungkook shouted. And you should have seen me, Jimin snapped. But we both made mistakes. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair. I need to hear it. The recording. Jimin nodded. He pulled a laptop from his bag, plugged in the USB, and opened a folder marked Internal, Not for Distribution. He clicked play. A meeting room. 3 executives. A voice Jungkook recognized his own manager. His mental health is deteriorating. He hasn't eaten properly in 3 days. Another voice. Cold. Calculated. We can't pull him now. The Japan tour is essential. Push vitamins. Cancel the therapist sessions this month. Tell the press he's preparing for a solo debut. But he's not ready. He doesn't need to be ready. He needs to be present. He's the face. We'll manage the rest. Jungkook stumbled back. He pressed pause. His breath hitched. They knew, he whispered. Jimin watched him carefully. They knew. I thought I was just weak. You were never weak. You were exploited. Jungkook sank to the floor, head in hands. Jimin crouched beside him. I hated you for not noticing me, Jimin said softly. But now I realize they made sure you couldn't see anything else. Jungkook's tears hit the floor, and Jimin, for the first time in months, reached out. Not to fix, not to save, just to hold. Together, they sat in the dim quiet of their old apartment, surrounded by the shattered illusions they once called home. But this time, they weren't alone in the wreckage. They were survivors. And maybe, just maybe, the truth had finally set something free. By morning, the file was leaked. Not by Jimin. Not by Jungkook. Someone inside the company, someone nameless, faceless, but with access and motive, released everything. The internal recordings, the scheduling documents, the emails, the video file. Within hours, hashtags trended worldwide. Protect Jungkook. Hybe exposed. Jimin knew. And another, uglier one. Golden facade. News outlets scrambled. Podcasts dissected. Even mainstream networks aired segments usually reserved for political scandal or celebrity death. Hybe's statement came fast and dry. We are conducting an internal investigation and will be pursuing legal action against the individual responsible for this leak. We remain committed to the well-being of all our artists. But it was too late. The world had heard the executives' voices. They had seen the numbers 12 consecutive days without proper meals, 9 canceled therapy appointments, pressure tactics to push solo projects Jungkook never approved. And worse, the implication that Jimin had known and said nothing. The comments under Jimin's last post turned brutal. People who once worshipped his every move now labeled him a traitor, a coward, a puppet. He sat in a hotel room, staring at his phone, watching the numbers climb and the hope drop. Jungkook hadn't called. Taehyung did. "Where are you?" he asked. "Nowhere that matters," Jimin replied. "They're going after you, not just fans, brands, sponsors, even the company." "I expected that." "No," Taehyung said. "You didn't. Because if you had, you wouldn't have stayed silent." Jimin's throat tightened. "They think I let him suffer. Didn't you?" The question struck like lightning. Jimin didn't respond. Taehyung sighed. "Tell the truth. All of it. Before someone else does." Meanwhile, Jungkook sat in his old apartment, shades drawn, phone off, internet unplugged. For once, he didn't want to perform, didn't want to defend. He just wanted to understand what to feel when the entire world is finally listening and you no longer know what to say. A knock shattered the quiet. He opened the door. It wasn't staff. It wasn't security. It was Jimin, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I didn't leak it," Jimin said. "I know. They think I did. They think a lot of things." Silence. Jimin stepped inside. "I'm going to tell them everything," he said. Jungkook looked at him carefully. "What's left?" Jimin looked away. "A lot." Jimin stood behind the curtain, his fingers trembling against the cold metal of the microphone. Outside, the press conference room was full journalists, cameras, flashing red indicators like sniper dots, all aimed at the podium he was about to walk toward. Hybe hadn't sanctioned this. His legal team hadn't cleared it. But he didn't care. They had written too many stories about him without permission. This one would be his. "Are you sure?" The assistant to his left asked again, panic in her eyes. "No," Jimin said. "But that never stopped me before." The curtain parted, and he stepped into the light. The flashes were immediate. The noise, too. A chorus of shouted questions, the white heat of attention. But Jimin walked slowly, deliberately, until he stood behind the mic, lowered his gaze, and said nothing. Silence. It devoured the room. And then he spoke. "I'm not here to protect my image. I'm here to tell the truth." The murmurs started. Pens scratched. Lenses zoomed. For the past few years, I watched someone I love be slowly destroyed under the weight of silence and performance. I didn't speak out, not because I didn't care, but because I was scared. Scared of losing what little control we had left. His voice didn't shake. It burned. There were meetings, secret ones, documents I wasn't supposed to see, proof that the people tasked with protecting us were the very ones pushing us into collapse. I didn't know how deep it went. And when I did, I didn't know how to carry it. He paused. "I should have spoken sooner. To him, to you. And for that, I take full responsibility." A journalist rose. "Are you admitting you enabled the mistreatment of your bandmate?" "No," Jimin replied. "I'm admitting that silence, in moments like these, is complicity. And I was complicit, because I let fear win." The room shifted. Another journalist. "Will you release the files in your possession?" Jimin nodded. "Every single one." "And what about Jungkook?" "He knows," Jimin said, his voice tightening. "And I will spend as long as it takes to rebuild what I helped break. But today isn't about us. It's about the system that allowed it. The press conference ended in chaos, flashes, questions. But Jimin was already gone. Back in the apartment, Jungkook watched the stream, alone, knees pulled to his chest. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "You finally saw me." Then he picked up the phone, not to call Jimin, but to call a lawyer. Hybe headquarters was in uproar, phones ringing, executives screaming, the legal team scrambling for damage control. And Taehyung? He walked into the building like he owned it. Straight to the CEO's office. "You're not scheduled," the secretary protested. "I'm not asking," he replied, pushing through the doors. Inside, the CEO was already on the phone. He looked up, startled. "Taehyung, this isn't a good time." "Make time." The call ended. "What is this about?" "You know exactly what it's about." The CEO leaned back, composed. "I assume you're here about Jimin. I'm here because you used us, broke us, lied to us. You're emotional. I'm human." Silence. "We did what was necessary to keep the brand alive," the CEO said coldly, "and killed the people behind it. This isn't personal." "It is now." Taehyung pulled out a flash drive. "You missed something. One of your directors?" He recorded everything. The CEO paled. "Your words, your approval, your strategy." They didn't expect Jungkook to show up. Not after the leak. Not after Jimin's press conference. Not after Taehyung's threats. But there he was, stepping out of the elevator with a kind of calm that made people nervous. Not angry, not defensive, just quiet. A silence that carried consequence. The executive board was already assembled. 12 men and women. Suits crisp. Expressions unreadable. Phones vibrating under the table. Scandal in their inboxes. A storm in their hands. Jungkook walked to the center of the room. No entourage, no lawyer, just him. And a single piece of paper. "I'm not here to ask questions," he said. "I'm here to give you one last chance to tell the truth." A long silence. Then the head of legal cleared her throat. "We're currently conducting an internal review. Stop lying." The room froze. "I've seen the documents. I've heard the recordings. I know exactly who approved the plan to break me." A murmur swept through the table. The CEO, still seated at the end, folded his hands. "You're not thinking clearly." "No," Jungkook said. "I'm finally thinking for myself." He placed the paper on the table. "My letter of termination. Effective immediately. I no longer wish to be represented by Hybe." Gasps. "You destroy your career?" "No," Jungkook said. "I'm saving my life." A board member stood. "This is emotional manipulation. You're upset." "I'm not upset. I'm awake." Another voice. Cold, male, calculated. "And what do you think walking away will achieve?" "Justice," Jungkook said. "And a warning." The room fell silent. "I gave you everything," Jungkook continued, voice tightening. "My youth, my body, my name. And you turned it into product. You turned my trauma into timeline, my pain into profit." He leaned forward. "So here's what happens next. I go public. Not just with what you did to me, but to others. I name names. I release tapes. And when I speak, they will listen. Because I'm not just an idol anymore. I'm a survivor." The CEO's voice was barely above a whisper. "You'll destroy us." Jungkook's eyes didn't blink. "You destroyed yourselves the moment you decided silence was cheaper than safety." Outside, the media had gathered. Inside, the board was unraveling. And somewhere across town, Jimin watched the live stream from a phone, hand over his mouth, tears falling in silence. He had never loved Jungkook more than he did in that moment. Because in the face of everything, Jungkook didn't flinch. He roared. Jungkook's press exit wasn't triumphant. It was chaos. Camera bulbs flashed like lightning in a storm. Questions hurled like grenades, half truth-seeking, half bloodthirsty. Security shouted. Reporters pushed forward. But he didn't flinch. Not even when someone yelled, "Are you trying to destroy K-pop?" He didn't stop until he was outside the building and standing under the open sky. The crowd behind the barricade screaming his name, some in anger, some in desperate support. He kept walking. No bodyguards. No Hybe. No handlers. His phone vibrated constantly. Calls from agencies, major sponsors, overseas labels trying to lure him in like vultures, smelling a fresh kill. He didn't answer any of them. Instead, he texted Jimin. I did it. No reply. Jungkook didn't blame him. The press had turned from him and toward Jimin in the most savage way. Clips of their past interviews. Photos pulled from 5 years ago with captions like, "The smile that hit a knife." It wasn't just public now, it was war. Between fans, between corporations, between loyalty and truth. That night, Jimin was forced into a back entrance of a hotel under a different name. Inside the suite, the air was still. He sat at the edge of the bed staring at the screen. Jungkook's final words to the board played again and again in his mind. "I'm not just an idol anymore. I'm a survivor." He whispered it to himself like prayer. When the knock came at the door, Jimin didn't answer. The knock came again, and then a voice. "It's me." He opened the door. Jungkook stood there, drenched from the rain. No umbrella, no coat, just rawness in his eyes. "You said you wanted to rebuild," Jungkook said. "Let's start now." Jimin stepped aside. Inside, the two of them sat on opposite ends of the couch. No words for minutes, just silence breathing between them. Then Jungkook broke it. "They're going to sue me. I know. They're going to blacklist me. They already are. I don't care." "I do," Jimin whispered. "Because this isn't just about your name anymore. It's about everything we built." "We didn't build it. They did. On our backs." Jimin looked up. "And now what? You burn it down? If that's what it takes, you'll lose everything." "I already lost you." Jimin's lips parted, but no words came. Outside, thunder rumbled again. Inside, Jungkook reached into his pocket and pulled out a flash drive. "This is everything. Every recording, every signature, every bribe." Jimin stared. "Why are you giving it to me?" "Because if they silence me, someone needs to finish what I started." Jimin didn't move. Then he reached forward, slowly, and took it. The moment their hands touched, something broke. Not anger, not pride, but the last wall between them. And finally, Jimin whispered, "Then we fight." Jungkook nodded. "We fight." The night before everything ended, the city didn't sleep. Neither did Jungkook. He stared at the ceiling of Jimin's hotel suite. The flash drive now in a sealed envelope on the table, the weight of its contents pulsing like a second heartbeat in the room. The plan was simple. Release the files. All of them. Names, dates, financial records, internal messages, legal threats. There would be no coming back. At 8 a.m., the final countdown would begin. Jimin brewed coffee in silence, eyes swollen from sleep he never took. The world outside had turned into fire and ash. But here, in this room, there was only one question neither of them had dared to ask. What if this destroyed everything? "Are you sure?" Jimin asked, handing him a mug. "No," Jungkook said. "But I'm not going to stay silent just so they can sleep." Jimin sat across from him. "If we do this, we're not just taking down Hybe. I know. We're tearing apart the industry. I know that too. They'll never let us sing again. Then they were never listening in the first place." By midday, the news was already bleeding. Someone had gotten wind of what was coming. An anonymous Twitter account posted a screenshot of a contract clause that included words like compliance and exploitation. The hashtags rose again. This time, louder, angrier. But also with something new. Hope. Fans rallied. Old artists came forward, one by one. A former trainee released a video in tears, thanking Jungkook for doing what no one had the power to do before. Another posted an old diary entry describing abuse, once written and buried, now rising to the surface like a body dragged from a river. And then, just as the wave crested, a betrayal. A leak from inside the label claimed the flash drive had been fabricated. A new narrative spun by one of Hybe's remaining senior executives, that Jungkook and Jimin were orchestrating a personal revenge plot because of a romantic falling out. Photos from their early dorm years were posted, doctored, to look like confessions. A voice memo, spliced and rearranged, made it sound like Jimin had planned to hurt Jungkook's career years ago. Within hours, the pendulum of public sympathy cracked. Jimin stared at his screen in horror. Jungkook stood still, his phone ringing off the hook. "They're going to kill the truth with scandal," Jimin whispered. "No," Jungkook said, jaw clenched. "They're going to try." And that night, they went live. Together. No script, no lights, just a single frame. both of them in front of a white wall. Eyes red, voices raw. "We're not actors," Jungkook said. "We're not PR machines. We're not enemies. We're survivors," Jimin added. And then, they played the first clip. Unedited, uncut, undeniable. And the world stopped pretending. The video didn't trend. It detonated. Within minutes of Jungkook and Jimin going live, Let Them Speak trended in 46 countries. People didn't just watch. They rewatched. They slowed frames. They transcribed every word. They cried. They screamed. They wrote poems. They created documentaries midstream. TikToks exploded with fans shaking, weeping, replaying Jimin's voice when he whispered, "We only ever asked to be heard, not owned." Then came the media blitz. Headlines split into two warring armies. One side labeled them heroes, whistleblowers, survivors. The other, manipulators, traitors, cowards. The industry giants released emergency statements filled with soft, crafted legalese. "We support transparency," they said, "but we also stand by our family." That word family made Jungkook physically ill. Hype stock plummeted, Vine set percent overnight. The next morning, a subpoena landed at Jimin's hotel. And then came the death threats. Jungkook checked the locks 6 times that night. Jimin sat in the bathtub, fully clothed, scrolling through DMs too vile to repeat. The price of truth wasn't just silence, it was blood, digital or real. "You regret it yet?" Jungkook asked, leaning against the doorframe. Jimin didn't answer. His eyes were open, but somewhere else. Like the war was still going on inside his head, and the body forgot how to retreat. Jungkook walked in and slid down beside the tub. "You know they won't stop now, right?" "I know,"